All right, we are back with another episode of the Search Economy. This is a David and Brett episode. You've listened to a lot of conversations we've had with some awesome owner, operators, marketers in the space, and sometimes we talk about topics here at Numa, and we say, you know what, these are good topics for this podcast. So today, David and I are going to be talking about the roles of social media and SEO in the search economy. David, you're a big racing fan. It's May. We were just talking about it before we hit record. How high are your spirits before we talk about marketing things?
Man, it's if you know it's May and it's a racing fan, there's a lot of good races on the calendar. Monaco is this weekend, the 500's this weekend. NASCAR had a crazy last weekend. They're gonna have another crazy weekend. Le Mans is right around the corner. So this is like, if you're a racing person, there's almost always a good race on every single weekend, which is a blast. So yeah, my Indy 500 pick is probably a Penske. Probably Newgarden. I daringly say he goes back to back. This is gonna lure to like 2% of our audience, but I'm saying Newgarden goes back to back. That's my hottest take.
Oh, okay. So you're saying 2%. I'd say maybe 1%. So, but at least you put the pick on record. So we'll have
Pick on
that.
record.
And although I would love to talk racing for the rest of this, it's a marketing podcast. So why don't we dig into it? I think this like topic of social media SEO is something that is something we think about a lot. I have not really thought about the delineation between the two until I started working at Newman and we started kind of chopping it up. So I think this will be a good topic. And I want to maybe start from this perspective and talk about conversations. I think just as a marketer, a lot of the times things go sideways is when we start thinking about people as little data points in an Excel spreadsheet. I think that's when you do really bad marketing and you aren't able to get anyone's attention. But I think conversations really are the catalyst for engagement, sales conversations, new customers. That so. I guess how important do you think it is to understand that almost everything we're trying to do from a revenue perspective starts with conversations that are happening online, and most of the time when you don't even know about it?
Yeah, it's something I've always come back to, is that if you're not telling your story, somebody else is. And I think as we think about conversations, if you're not in them, that's a pretty telling story as well, because people don't know you exist. And I think hidden in that message as well, starting with the conversation, it's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle, because everything's going to start with that conversation. Even if we do B2B work, our business does not talk to somebody else's business. That's not how that works. People talk to people, and it all starts with that conversation, right? So, I think as we think of specifically what we do, demand capture, getting in front of those conversations that are already happening, it's a lot of fun to go find where those conversations are happening, under what search terms on Google they're happening, making sure we put a brand or business in front of those conversations. We don't have to spark up a conversation. We don't have to go up to someone cold turkey and ask how their day's been. We just kind of jump right into the mix. And I think that's a unique advantage of the way we think about things.
Well, one of the things that I think I'm guilty of as a marketer, and I would imagine many marketers listening to this would feel the same way when I say this, but we all want to ship, we all want to share, we all want to talk, we all want to control the conversation. But I think when we take a step back and try to do some listening and see what's being said about topics, words, content, things that are related to what our product or service can offer, that's when we do better work. So, what do you think the balance is between listening to existing conversations that are going on and contributing to conversations that already exist?
Yeah, I think rather than a balance, I think it really depends on where your business is. Are you really looking for new customers that are brand new to your business, or do you want to try and get in front of the people that might already know about you, that are continually looking for your service as well? But I'd say the biggest thing is, you talk about listening. As we think of, or even as I think of our clients, one of the best opportunities we have is asking them to listen to their customers, sales calls, marketing conversations, all the way down to comments on LinkedIn, right? What are some of the things that people are saying or talking about online that you can start to capture and build content around yourself? So there's been multiple cases to where we'll get a sales call from a client. We'll go through and find the 5 questions that person asked. write content on that to capture some of that awareness or audience, and those convert into really good revenue generating opportunities as well. So I think that's a pretty unique part of listening to the existing conversations that are happening, whether it's with people that know about you or don't know about you, but just listening to how people talk in the industry and what they're talking about. You can get in front of Honestly, you can get in front of people that are already looking for what you do. I think the tough part is you think about what do you do after. Listening gets you into the conversation, but that's where I say each brand and business does have a story to tell. It might not be crazy unique. I don't think ours is crazy unique compared to other people, but I think it really hits home with, who we're targeting, but it's still a story. And I think that's the other half of this is that once you find the conversations you should be in, the way people are talking, what they're talking about, throw your 2 cents into the mix. Throw your, quote unquote hot take, put that on paper and really see how people respond and resonate to that as well. I always say Google is not when you search for something, you see the results on Google. I don't view them as just companies. I view them as different takes or stories on the topic at hand. It's up to the customer to go find what aligns with them the best. So if you're in the mix, if you get to toss your story into the mix, that's always going to be a positive for the brand.
You said something there that I think just in your position as business owner and founder is I find a little unique where you said our story isn't unique. I think a lot of people in your position claim that what they're doing, product, service, story is unique. It is one of a kind. And then they go all in on trying to beat that drum through social media across all the channels to try to kind of elevate their own position, which is just natural, right? We have the tools to do it. So I don't know, like to me, that works like 1 to 2% of the time. And the existing conversations that are already happening maybe should be the place where a lot of us are spending more of our attention. How like is have you always thought about it the way you just described, or has that evolved as just Numa has evolved over time?
It's definitely evolved as Numa has evolved over time as well. When I say our story isn't unique, it's not necessarily something that no one else can claim in terms of how the company started. But as you even think of like my role of how we tell our story, I get to be the chief storyteller, right? I get to stand in front of people and actually talk about what we do. And I think the unique part about that in starting conversations is getting an understanding that our ICP isn't always looking for brand new hot takes, something that's like so different it's hard to understand. A lot of times I find with our audience, it's, how best can I explain this to help you understand how it impacts your business? The tactical work, the SEO, the Google ads, I don't think is all that different than what you might be able to find in the market. But how we wrap that, how we tell the story around it, maybe that is the most unique part about it is that the present's the same, but the wrapping paper is different, and we can really lean in and tell how we think about SEO in light of the search economy, saying that your customers are on offense, starting to put that into visibility that relates to the business owner and helps them understand really how this SEO thing can make an impact to their business.
I want to be really clear up front because we're going to talk about it and it might seem like a negative, but we're not negative social media people. Like, we're not anti social media. I just want to make that clear up front. But I do think that because of the proliferation of social media and because we all have access to these tools, literally, we pull up apps on our phone and just can go say whatever we want, and try to put a message out about who we are, what we do, and our brand, and have it hit a certain audience, that we become intoxicated by that motion and seeing the engagement levels and seeing who's seeing it. But maybe that doesn't convert to dollars or new revenue. I do think social media, obviously, we use it at Numa, is super powerful. But how much time do you think we should be using social media to start conversations in the search economy?
I use two words: broadcast and court. And what I mean by that is social media is a lot of broadcasting to the wide public what you do and who you are. You might get people tuning in that specifically want to listen to you. But if you think of broadcast, you think of radio. The number of times I used to have the radio in my truck, my very first truck, my '02 Nissan Frontier, and I just clicked through channels trying to find the channel that I wanted to listen to. I heard a lot of broadcasts that I did not care about until I found the one, right? So I say, I think social media I equate to a lot of broadcasting. It's okay to broadcast information about your brand, but when you broadcast it, it could be to a number of people, a lot of which don't actually know you, are going to be buyers. Maybe they're just following along for the fun of it, but they're not all that interested. I think what we do leans more into the side of terminology about courting. You have a relationship, it's one to one. The other person wants to be at that table talking to you. So it makes it a little bit easier for you to invest time into that as well. They know who you are and they're interested in what you do. And I'd say that that similarity, or I guess that dichotomy between broadcast and courting, is definitely changes for brand or business. I'm one to say that the more that you can lean on the side of courting, the better. The more that you can get in front of people that want to talk to you, demand that you've already captured. It's always going to be better than trying to generate and drum up demand as you broadcast about your business, because there's no guarantee that you're broadcasting to the right people. And it's almost impossible to measure that you're broadcasting to the right people as well. I'd much rather flip it on its head rather than spend a lot of our time, energy, and money broadcasting about the business. Let's do that to enough of a level, enough of a degree to make sure that we're at least getting some of our story out, but put more time and effort into making sure that we're courting the right people and getting in front of people that actually want to speak to us.
Okay, so if we're not broadcasting or spending all of our time broadcasting, and knowing that there are existing conversations that are already happening that we can enter, how should we think about doing that tactically in a way that's not like pushing what we're selling right in front of the face of the people that we're trying to help, but doing it in a way that helps elevate our brand while also creating a new pipeline of great fit customers that will stay with you for the long haul?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about entering some of those conversations and not forcing it, right, is finding what people are really looking for and in our case searching for. But I think the one thing nobody likes is when you force your way into a conversation and it's not even the topic at hand. It's something completely different. We're talking about best places to eat dinner, and somebody comes up and talks about their favorite car. Like, okay, that's a little different, a little off. But I often seen that in the sense of, as you think about social media and broadcasting, people are trying to search for these conversations, but they're tossing their name in the rings of the wrong conversations. The one thing that I'm always cognizant of is where are your people? Where's your ICP actually hanging out online? What are they talking about? What are they searching for? And let's meet them with the behaviors that they're already doing. If they're searching for terms X, Y, and Z, let's throw our name in the ring there and put out content about terms X, Y, and Z. I think a lot of times I've found people want to rank for certain search terms because they simply want to rank for it. Sometimes it's a founder or CEO that says, we really want to rank for, keyword X. Nobody searches for it. Maybe your ICP doesn't, right? I think it's not just what you want your brand to rank for. It's where your customers are already searching and meeting them there and giving them something unique about that topic, right? Even if we're ranking for a keyword like warehouse jobs, what's the most unique take on warehouse jobs that you can bring to the table? What's something different that everybody else says? And what's your unique take on the thing as a whole? So I think that's one of the unique things of finding where people are already searching, putting your name in the ring there, but giving them a taste about how you do things differently than the competition or competitors.
So you said something in one of the early conversations that I had. I don't know if it was a one-on-one team meeting, something. There was some forum where we were talking, and it inspired me to write an article. I'll link it in the show notes, but it was how to explain SEO like you're talking to a toddler. And the statement that resonated with me was social media starts conversations, SEO makes your conversation or makes your brand a part of existing conversations. And I think like breaking that down into the simplest terms, like washed over me and it resonated and is maybe part of the reason why we're having this chat. Talk like that's basic, that's fundamental, but maybe like let's open that up and talk about just the construct of those two statements. We've kind of broad brush strokes on those throughout this conversation so far, but I'd love for you to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, there's another analogy I use with this. I used to plan events. Is one of my first jobs. I hated it because it was tough. There's so much that goes into planning an event, right? Specifically, we were doing speaker events. So finding the speakers, finding the food, finding the venue, paying the venue, figuring out when people are going to get there, when our date is, right? The reason I'm going to go with that analogy, there's a lot of energy, time, and money that goes into starting conversations, right? You need to find the people you need to be talking to. You need to find out how you're going to talk to them, where you're going to talk to them, why you're going to talk to them, how you continually talk to them over weeks and months to follow. I don't plan events anymore. I certainly go to events though. Why? I can get a lot of value out of it. They're a lot easier to attend than they are to plan. And I can walk right in and have a great idea at what's going on in that event. They're my people. I can jump right into the fold and talk to them. So I don't think it's bad. Some brands or businesses are only cut out to start their own conversations. They're so unique in the market. There's not a conversation that they can enter and jump into because maybe the thing doesn't exist yet. That's fine. I also don't think that's where we best suit our customers. It's the ones where those conversations are already happening, much like an event, right? If you're going to a networking event, it's a lot easier to go to one, put the name tag on your chest and start talking to people than just try and plan and build the whole thing from scratch. So as I think about SEO, I always use that analogy. Again, some brands or businesses are cut out to plan it from scratch and build the conversation, but that's not always needed for the companies that we represent. For a lot of the companies that we represent, it's a lot easier to find where that conversation's happening and just jump right into the mix. Find the search term that people are already searching for, relevant to the business that you do, and just start ranking for it, put your name into the ring, and get in front of the people that have been searching for that.
Anybody who's trying to improve their position in the search economy certainly has to consider time as a factor. I think we think about social media, and that's right. I can literally take my phone, post something on LinkedIn as we're talking, and it's going to hit my existing audience, and they'll get likes, comments, instant engagement. SEO, on the other hand, it takes a little bit. It takes a little while to get going. How do you maybe talk through that with people who aren't necessarily in the weeds, have knowledge about all things SEO, but that's something you have to explain in terms of the differences between impact of social media from a short term and then just the impact of SEO from a long term perspective?
Yeah, so I'd say social, and it's something we always encourage clients to do. There should never be a time that you're not doing social. There should probably be times where you're investing less into it and trying to jump out of the gates and capture that revenue. But social is one of those things that you can really, tailor to yourself. I think it works for brands or businesses over the long haul, but it certainly takes more time, right? The easiest way to think about this is on social media, you get followers. Those followers are going to follow along with whatever you post. It can be tough to get an actual following, right? Um, Compare that to Google, there's 8.5, 8.6 billion searches a day. They already have the followers, so to speak. You're just using the audience and the user base that they already have to get your message out. That is always a quicker way to do it. Again, I don't think it's bad to do both, but as we think of time, social is going to have a longer tail than I would even say SEO. You hear the stories about somebody going viral and making a business off of one post. Great for them. Probably not going to happen for anybody listening on this call or this podcast. Social's always good to run in the background, but I always start with, the SEO and the search side of things because you're jumping into an audience that's already formed that, this account, Google, already has followers that you can tap into. You don't have to do stage one of building the account, building the followers just to post to it. You can jump right into the posting side of things and get in front of people that are already looking for what you do. And if anything, let those findings, help service the strategy on the social side of things.
With social media, sure, you have to understand how to be able to drive engagement, write copy, do all those things, headlines. But that's something that, if you're a good writer, you can understand. SEO is a little bit different. I've talked a lot about how I'm a career marketer, but SEO more or less is a blind spot for me in terms of not knowing I need it, but understand the makings and how it works from a technical side. So how should we be thinking about that from a like, hey, I'm doing social media. Hey, I might be interested in SEO, but you know what? I really don't have the domain expertise. Like, what's the move? Like, is it hiring someone? Is it outsourcing? Like, how do you think about that?
There's a quote that I always come back to, and it's that it's never as bad as it seems. And I think about that a lot with SEO because SEO consultants, specialists, strategists, whatever you want to say, I think have done a really good job of making SEO seem really complicated. And don't get me wrong, it's complex. There's some technicalities to it that you won't find posting to Instagram or social media. But the other thing that I keep in mind is that, a few barriers to entry shouldn't keep me from something that's going to be successful for the brand. I know a lot of people who have done SEO by themselves and made it work just fine. Read, engage, understand how to actually do it, follow along with some of the best insights that you can get, and they make it work for the brand or business. A lot of people will hire somebody. That's why we're in business and others are in business because the story that they want to tell and the demand that they want to capture is so important to the success of the business. They're willing to pay to get over that barrier of entry around the technical knowledge to make sure that it's going to be impacting the brand or business for a while. So social, you can go post on today. It's easy, right? Especially if you're a marketer, you have the writing capability, the messaging, the positioning to make it happen. SEO is certainly more complex than social, but I don't think it's so complex that you should avoid it. It'll take a little bit of effort if you're going to do it on your own. It's going to take a little bit of cash if you hire a firm to do it. But think of that as the key that unlocks a door that's a little bit of a quicker path to revenue. You can either take the long way, figure it out yourself, or you can take the shorter path, pay to play, get a firm that can help you get there quicker. And I've seen both of those. Both can be successful, but we certainly help shorten that path for a lot of people.
All right, we started with conversations. I think that's been the theme throughout all of this conversation. Little conversation inception there, I guess. What social media SEO, like, what does it look like when they're both of those motions are doing what they should, like working together in kind of like a perfect harmony? Like, what should things we should be seeing?
Yeah, SEO is all about capturing the demand in the market, being in the conversations that are already happening. Again, I think that's a great way to capture revenue. And I think as you layer social in, you should think of it from a demand generation angle. When both of those are working together, you have one arm of the business that's out capturing new demand and bringing it into the business, getting you in front of people that need your services but didn't know you existed before they searched, which is a huge win. And then with something like social, I've seen it work not only with people in the pipeline that are still prospects but are coming through the pipeline. You can keep them warm and keep them engaged, but I see social work really well with current customers, bringing them back to the front of the pipeline and making them re-engaged again. I see those two work very well hand in hand. I always like to start with let's get customers to the business first, and let's talk about what to do with them second. But yeah, really working hand in hand. There's one that will capture it and bring the people into your business, and then there's one that will really generate the demand and keep them focused for some time.
Conversations, SEO, social media. It's what you're going to get here on the search economy. David, excited for the next conversation. There'll be a topic that'll hit one of our brains here in the next couple days, but excited to saddle up and do another one of these. Thanks everyone for listening in.